So, if you're looking to make positive change with your money, no matter where you're starting, learning to master the art of budgeting is the single most powerful skill that you can learn. And I'm going to teach you in this series everything that I know about building wealth with budgeting from my own practice of mastering budgeting over the last 15 years. And I know that if you spend intentional focus on this series and follow me through this roadmap and blueprint that I'll teach you, that you will find more success with money. But it takes going deeper than most people are willing to go to. See, a lot of people will just stick at the surface level of financial advice and they'll never go to the deeper levels that impact actually what's happening at the surface level. What it really takes is confronting yourself and the psychology and resistance of budgeting and money, which we'll cover in part two, that really impacts how you behave with a budget. And if you don't marry those two things up, then you'll never find success and you won't really see the purpose in it. And it doesn't matter who you are. I'm looking straight in the camera that, no matter where you were starting, no matter where you're at, that I can help you get to a place that you wouldn't think is possible with money. And it's the same place that I went over 15 years. But I'm hoping that you don't have to go through all the trial and error and help save you a lot of time and effort. I do want to introduce myself to you to help with some of the stranger danger of a smaller channel and share why my expertise might be helpful to you and to share the subject matter that I have. So over the last 15 years, I did start $50,000 to $60,000 in debt. I've transformed that to now having a 7-figure portfolio that I built over a strong budgeting practice, learning how to save and invest and do a ton of other stuff, which I'm going to cover in this channel, but it all started with budgeting. And I don't share any of that to brag, but only to share that I understand what works and I want to be able to help you with that. All right, so now let's go into the 9 parts of this series that I'm going to be covering with you. And again, it's marrying the why you're doing this with the what you're doing so that you learn not just the surface level tools and tactical steps and practical budgeting techniques, but the deeper fundamentals of what really goes into being successful over the long term. And so the first thing that we're going to start with is what benefits come with budgeting and why it's valuable to you to spend this time and energy learning how to do this. Second part is, if it's so important and budgeting so great, why aren't more people doing it? And in fact, I saw a study that said only 37% of American households are now budgeting. I'm going to go through 4 rules that any budget should have. Then we're going to get into building skills, and we're going to cover the mindset and the practical techniques that you're going to be building. And the way I like to talk about this is, imagine if you're riding a bike. One wheel is your mindset, and the other wheel is the practical surface level techniques you're learning. And just like riding a bike, you need both wheels kind of balancing at the same time. Then we're going to talk about establishing a strong why for your budgeting practice. A famous saying is, a person that has a strong why can survive any what. And so if you have a strong why behind what you're budgeting for, everything else becomes a lot easier. Then I'm going to talk about finding the right budgeting tool. I'll use some recommendations that I've used over the last 15 years. I'll cover how to conceptually understand the different processes that we're going to be reviewing. And then ultimately building the system that will allow you to use budgeting successfully. And then key moments in your budgeting practice, whether that's how to budget a paycheck, annual planning, saving for key things that are important to you in a year. Ultimately, all of this comes together to give you a system that you can put into place in your own life that unlocks this budgeting superpower. So let's get into step 1 of this series, conceptualizing why a budget's so important. Let me give you 4 analogies for why a budget is critical in something other than money. So imagine that if you wanted to lose weight or get stronger in the new year, one of the first things that you might do is you would look at your food and nutrition, and you're trying to change how you're relating to food so that you can lose weight. In another example, maybe you're trying to get stronger, so you're looking at what food am I eating so I can add muscle or get faster. The point is that no matter what you're trying to do with your body, food plays a part. Very similar to the way money impacts our financial situation. And so you can think about being financially overweight as wanting to reduce debt. And so what is debt? It means that you're spending more money than you're making, just like our bodies might be eating more calories than we're burning every day. And so we start gaining weight. Well, it's the same thing with financial debt. When you want to get stronger with your body, it's very similar to wanting to build wealth with our money. So we want our money to get stronger. We're trying to grow. And so just like we want to understand where food's going, we might use a nutrition tracker, or at least just have a general idea of what we're eating. A budget kind of does that for your dollars, and it supports you no matter where you are on your journey. And that's the critical part is budgeting doesn't stop when you have a lot of money or when you have a little. It's critical no matter where you're at. Okay, so second part is an airplane. So I want you to think about if you were going to take off in an airplane and the captain came on and she said, "Hey, we just took off, but all of my gauges and instruments stopped working. I don't know how much fuel we have. I don't know the direction we're headed. I don't know how quick we're going. I don't know my elevation. And, hopefully we get there." Well, not having a budget is like flying blind. Not having a budget is like you don't have any of your instruments to tell you, well, how much money do I actually have? What's my money assigned to? What's the key things that I need to do? How quickly am I going to get to my goal? So just like you would want to have gauges for an airplane, it's the same thing with your money. A budget kind of helps you do that and gives you the critical information you need. With a business, so if a business had a quarterly earnings tomorrow and they said, we don't know where any of our money has went, we don't really understand our accounting, and we don't really know how we're going to use our money going forward or the strategies that we're going to use, and we don't know how effective we've been at managing money, that business would go out of business immediately, and that CEO would probably never be able to find work again. And so if understanding what's going on with money in business is so critical, it's 100 times more important for your life. If you go back to my first video, I talk about how you're exchanging limited time on earth for $1 when you work. And so if this life energy that you're getting through money is you get a limited amount of it, it's 100 times more important to be specific with money in your personal life than a business. All right, and then last analogy, we track and look at numbers that are important to us. So if you're an athlete, you know your lifts, you know how many miles you're running in a week, or if you're into sports, you know everything about your sports team and how many yards someone's run, or how many goals they've scored, or how much the team scored in the last 50 years. We look at what's important, and a budget helps affirm that in your mind. And think about that psychology. You're telling yourself, well, money is important. And it's not that money becomes the sole focus of your life, but we understand that it's an essential tool to help you in whatever vision you're working towards. And that's what a budget starts helping you tell yourself, and you start building a new identity. So the next part is, let's go into the specific reasons that a budget's helpful for your money. So the first thing is that it gives you control. So you're able to assign every single dollar that you have towards whatever is most important to you. And so this is a light switch moment once you really start learning how to do this well. It takes control away from money feeling like something that controls you to you controlling money, and you're being really intentional with it. The challenge, and we'll get into this in the psychology, is that it takes looking in the mirror. And that's something that I resisted for the longest time, because looking in the mirror meant confronting the financial problems that I believed I have. And it was looking at, oh my gosh, I'm $50,000 in debt. I'm in this hole that I'm never going to be able to get out of. And you start to feel powerless. And so you're kind of giving these, what I might call monsters, more and more power by keeping them in darkness. And that's something that's really sinister about money, just an aside that I want to talk about. But there's this taboo about talking about money in our culture. And in fact, we only just started being able to release salaries so that people understand, how much other people are making in a similar job. But we carry such shame and guilt in society around debts that we have or other problems with money. And it's really sad, because you carry so much emotional baggage with money that you're never able to get out, because you don't feel like you can talk to anybody about it. And what makes matters worse is that this country's terrible about educating people about money. So through no fault of your own, you're uneducated and you're shamed in our culture for talking about money or for sharing problems. And all that does is it makes you feel helpless and makes you be stuck in a problem. And so a budget starts to help change all of that. It says, no, we're going to look at your numbers. We're going to look at finance, but we're going to fix it. And it brings this control and helps you limit anxiety. And I would also say, I don't have it on here, but it gives you hope. And it focuses more on how we're going to change a situation than being stuck in it. So then the next part, I kind of talked about this just now, but it gives you visibility in your situation, and it gives you ownership and accountability towards what's important to you in your life. And so once you start saying, no, I'm not going to let these monsters control me, or I'm going to work towards something that's more important, you start being able to hold yourself accountable. Just like you might have a workout goal, like, hey, I want to run 20 miles in a week. You'll have your set workouts. If you don't hit a workout, you're going to be able to hold yourself accountable and work on it going forward. So a budget helps you do that. It's also helping you set direction and intention. So just like an airplane, we want to know where we're headed. Well, a budget helps you set clear intentions on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. And it's just making those little changes that you can track over time that get you to where you want to be. And that's what gets us to build wealth, like I've talked about. Your prioritization. So what I call your army. So you can think about every single dollar that you have as being a living, breathing thing, and you're assigning it to whatever is important to you. And so this army is fighting for you every single day, and you send them on missions. So hopefully you're sending your army and your dollars towards a mission that's building wealth in your life. But for a lot of us that are uneducated, I don't want to say we're killing our army, but we're not putting them on missions that are doing much for what we want in our life. And so this helps you prioritize in the right way. The last thing that I'll add is it gives you flexibility. And I know this sounds counterintuitive, but when you first start, a budget might feel restrictive. But if you do it right, what it allows you to do is move money around to whatever is important to you. And you can be really clear about how much money you have and where you want to move it in these different buckets. And I'll walk you through how to do that tactically. But what it gives you is freedom and flexibility that you didn't think you had. And I guarantee that if you follow through this whole process, this will happen for you. And so you can go from a place where you feel really limited and restricted with money to actually being able to get more options. And then finally, what does that all look like on the practical side? So we're going to get out of debt. If you have debt, we're not going to have debt. We're going to have our budget work for us, and we're going to build a plan for that. We're going to have a safety net so that if you lose your job, you're not living paycheck to paycheck, and you have a little bit of breathing room in your life, which is a big wealth definition for me. You can maximize the joy that your dollars bring you because, again, you're being really intentional and you're moving dollars towards what matters, and you're not just kind of spending money and not having a clear picture of where it's all going. You can actually be really purposeful about it. You can start seeing how your progress is adding up over time. So this becomes really rewarding. Just like if you're working out, you can kind of see your progress over time with your body. A budget helps you do that. You can maximize growth. So just like I talked about how you have this money army that's working for you, when you learn how to budget, you're going to be able to maximize whatever your dollars are doing. Okay, so I hope you see between some examples in other parts of our lives, or the emotional impact that budgeting can have, or the practical steps of budgeting, that you can start to see why a budget's important, and that it will inspire you to want to dedicate time towards this. Because like I said at the beginning of the video, if you can follow this blueprint, I guarantee that you'll be more successful with money. And so again, it mean a lot to me if you could subscribe. I'm going to be putting a ton of time into this series. So I'll be coming out with it weekly so that you can follow along with me. And if you have any questions on any of this content or want more clarity on something, please drop a comment, and I read each one and I'll be happy to respond to it.